Welcome to our 4th Tempo Storm Shadowverse Meta Snapshot. The mini expansion for Rebirth of Glory was released on August 22nd, bringing us 17 new cards to the current set. Even with the introduction of these cards, not much has changed at the top of the tier list. The composition of most decks, with the exception of Ambush Sword, remain very similar to before the mini expansion. Weaker classes such as Dragoncraft and Shadowcraft have received powerful new tools in Isla Devoted Knight and Lara Soul Taker. These classes have more streamlined strategies that can win games, but they remain in tier 3. Their overall power level is still not enough to contest tier 1 decks like Machina Rune. Overall, the latter is now dominated by multiple combos and synergies with a steeper learning curve. Only Machina Rune and Machina Blood have made enough of an impression against these strategies to hold their high positions on the tier list. As we enter the final stages of the current expansion, decks have become more refined, and decks which do not make the cut in the current meta have been moved out of tier 1 and tier 2. Before we reveal the latest developments in the latter meta, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for the latest Tempo Storm news and Shadowverse content. Now let's begin. Machina Rune continues to dominate the ladder at the top of the food chain as a well-balanced deck with no real weaknesses. The deck can recover play points with Mecha Book Sorcerer, giving players more mana and efficient turns to cast Mechanized Lifeform, Fate's Hand, and Magitech Golem. Mecha Staff Sorcerer and Zealot of Truth allow this deck to even come out ahead against the buffed Ambush Sword deck, especially with the presence of Craving Splendor tech and access to repair mode generators. Alana Haven remains in tier 1 as the second best deck. The Evolve Haven archetype from last month has vanished, but left behind the popular inclusion of Realm of Repose in standard Alana Haven. This gives the deck a strong defense against burst damage taken, preventing followers on board from being cleared, and gives the deck an easier time to set up overwhelming boards to win the game. The relative ease to pilot compared to other top meta decks allowed this deck to be featured in the grand finals of Tempo Storm's August Buddy System event. Ambush Sword is the only top tier deck which has gained power in the mini expansion. This power boost came from Everlasting Castle, an effective tutor for the deck's main win condition, Liad the Crescent Blade. Everlasting Castle can also be used to find Quickblader, a storm follower which can give the deck a way to play around damage cap effects such as Azazel the Depraved. Although this card gives a great consistency boost to the deck, players on ladder have been learning how to play more aggressively against this deck, thus there is a chance that the power level of this deck may drop towards the end of the month. Check out our Shadowverse section of our website for an article about Ambush Sword from Noir, linked in the description below. Artifact Portal finds itself at the bottom of tier 1. While it is still a strong deck, its main target, Alana Haven, has learned to utilize Realm of Repose to protect its board from being cleared by a constant stream of artifacts, thus lowering the win rate for this matchup. It still remains a strong deck that is great at establishing board control, with both Lishena and Maisha acting as powerful win conditions, as long as their damage does not get mitigated by cards such as Azazel and Realm of Repose. Due to the dominating presence of Machina Rune in the meta, Hybrid Blood has dropped to tier 2, where it finds itself sandwiched between Vengeance Blood and Machina Blood. Vengeance Blood finds itself to be at the top of the 3 Blood siblings. While the archetype is named Vengeance Blood, it technically is composed of the Vengeance and Evolve package, while Hybrid Blood is more commonly considered as the Vengeance Machina Hybrid. Machina Blood overall has a weaker matchup against other top tier decks, with the exception of the matchup against Machina Rune. This is due to being less reliant on the Vengeance package and Azazel's Evolve effect, thus less vulnerable to the chip damage from Machina Rune's Delta Canyon and Mecha Staff Sorcerer. At the bottom of tier 2 we have Spell Boost Rune. Sadly, with the exception of having a better matchup against Alana Haven, Machina Rune just does everything much better with less of a weakness against all other top meta decks, thus there is very little to use this deck over its Machina sibling. Due to the well-rounded nature of Machina Rune, there is no hard counter to the deck currently. However, other powerful decks such as Alana Haven and Ambush Sword can still put up strong fights against the deck, and when piloted correctly, can often win many games in the matchup. Artifact Portal is surprisingly a balanced matchup for Machina Rune as well, with both sides utilizing their deck's capability to fight for board control while working towards their win conditions before the other. Vengeance Blood also has one of the most balanced matchup spreads in rotation, finding even footing against any deck that isn't Machina Rune. In conclusion, we have entered the final stages of the Rebirth of Glory meta, with decks being more refined and the meta more stable. As the meta is well-rounded, no balance changes are expected, but we are excited for the spoiler season of Shadowverse's next expansion to unveil new possibilities for the format. Keep an eye on the last set of Shadowverse Open tournaments taking place in September, as well as the Rage Shadowverse 2019 Autumn Finals taking place place on the 21st. We look forward to whether or not these tournaments can introduce last-minute meta shifts, as well as announcements related to the new Shadowverse expansion. For now, what is it that you want to see in the new Shadowverse expansion? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for the latest Tempo Storm news and Shadowverse content. Thanks for watching!